Well, hello, everybody, and a happy, healthy new year. Welcome to Square Off, our first show of the new year, and what plans we have for you this year. Unbelievable. And thank you so much for your support of our online Square Off. Well, let's meet today's panel, if you will. First, here he is again, Attorney Billy Murphy. Billy, good to see you, sir. Nicolette Ambrose, GOP National Committee woman and singing sensation. Attorney Bob Scher, best divorce lawyer around, and Ted Venetoulis, former Baltimore County executive, an author, entrepreneur, and a staunch supporter of President-elect Joe Biden. We're really happy to see you all. We've got a great new year planned. Well, Baltimore has a new mayor with a very old problem. With more than 300 murders in the city in the year just passed, 2020, this is the sixth consecutive year we've had 300 or more murders. More than 1,000 total shootings in 2020. A new year with an old story. Bob Scher, we've talked about this for years.
It's exactly the same now as it was when we started talking about it for years. The bad guys are on the street. The police are afraid to do their jobs, and nothing's changed.
It's actually worse now than ever. It's worse because not only have we not addressed the significant problems of rebuilding the Black family after it was destroyed by mass incarceration, but we haven't really changed the culture of policing. And we haven't changed the situation of desperate poverty in the inner cities in Baltimore. And until we do that, we're going to get the same result. When people are suffering without mothers and fathers, and when they raise themselves, this is what happens.
Ted, Nicolette, come on, jump in.
Well, I think Billy is right in many ways, but we got to give the new mayor a shot at it. I mean, he's a young guy. He's got a lot of ideas. He's got the energy. It's the toughest job in the world. And we'll just have to hope and help him try to do something about all this. The other aspect of it is the regional folks really have to kick in. Baltimore County, the other subdivisions. The city can't make it alone. City has the problems. The counties have most of the money. And they have to pitch in. And I think I see good signs in the relationship between Johnny O and Brandon. And well, let's just hope we do what we have to make the inner city survive, because it means a lot to all of us.
Nicolette, where are you?
Well, I actually live in the city, and I agree with Billy that I think it's worse than ever. I agree with actually something everyone said here. My concern is our new mayor's seeming hostility toward law enforcement. At the same time, we're seeing some people with very dangerous records being released from prison due to COVID, and I'm very concerned for safety.
You know, there's no common sense in a lot of these issues. One is how we deal with COVID, which is not the topic now. I'll save it for that. But the way we deal with that, the way we're dealing with the crime in Baltimore City, it's either one way or the other. We either have mass incarceration, which didn't work, or we let everybody out, which doesn't work. I mean, there's got to be some common sense with the police. The police, because of the Ferguson effect, that has affected many officers who are afraid to do their job properly. And then again, on the other hand, you've got unqualified police that are overstepping their bounds. So, you know, this defund the police is not the way to go. Actually, we ought to put more money in the police, not less, and get some qualified police officers, give them the proper training. But it's always one way or the other, and they never work. We need to get the bad guys off the street. I understand you got to let people out for COVID, but don't let the murderers out. All right. It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Bob,
but that's not happening. We're not letting the murderers out. And sometimes there are court decisions which reflect an unfairness in our criminal justice approach. And those court decisions make a rational judgment that the people involved did not get fair trials. And so they get referred back for new trials. And what happens then sometimes is that because of the passage of time, the witnesses are no longer available. And so things go kaput. But that's a structural problem that we've been trying to rectify in the system for a long time.
I would like to say, if I may say, because of the COVID-19 pandemic that Bob was talking about, there's actually been a 30% decrease in robberies and property crimes, and almost 20% decline in overall violent crimes. The police commissioner, Michael Harrison, says that this is no time to celebrate. One more comment from anybody and we'll move on.
I'd like to throw in there, I think Commissioner Harrison's doing a very good job. I think Baltimore's really lucky to have him. And I sincerely hope the new mayor appreciates that we were able to recruit Commissioner Harrison to Baltimore.
All right, well, we're glad to have him. And ladies and gentlemen, we have to take a pause because I want you to make sure that you head to Pappas restaurants and sports bars for your New Year's resolution, the year's most delicious crab cakes, or any year, or their crab imperial, their steaks, chops, yummy food at Pappas. Their fab cakes are Oprah's favorites. Dine in or curbside carry out Pappas. And for heating, cooling, plumbing, and home improvements, we urge you to call another of our sponsors, Scardina. Jim Scardina's granddad started this company back in the 70s, and it's a great company. For emergency services, call Scardina, 410-761-6900, Scardina, homeservices.com. All right, on to the COVID-19 pandemic as it rages on, and it's expected to get even more critical because so many millions of Americans ignored dire warnings and traveled over Christmas and New Year's. The grim numbers in Maryland, more than 271,000 cases, 6,000 deaths. Nationwide, more than 19 million cases, more than 336,000 Americans dead. Hospitals are running out of space. Patients waiting in the halls or in ambulances on the parking lots at hospitals. What are your thoughts about the pandemic, Ted?
Well, we finally have an administration that's going to do what has to be done about it. That's the big difference. Can you imagine Donald Trump at World War II instead of FDR? We've got a whole different ballgame coming in now. We have an administration that will deploy the great resources this nation has to deal with crises like this. And you've seen it already in his early announcements and his early posture, his demeanor, his intention to involve all Americans and not play red states against blue states, and to impose the leverage of this great country. It's decency. So I think we're heading for ultimately some rational approach and solution to this. It isn't going to be easy. We've dug a real hole, and it's an incredible illness. But have confidence in Joe Biden and Kamala, their administration, and their approach to this.
And now the UK strain has been located in a gentleman in.
Richard, I partially agree with Ted, which is going to surprise you. The way this country is now, there's two extremes. You've got no common sense, but two extremes. On the one hand, you've got lockdowns. All right. You've got the states that are stay at home, lockdowns, schools closed, restaurants closed, no indoor dining, outdoor dining, etc. Then on the other hand, on the other extreme, you've got half the country that have no restrictions. They don't wear masks. They don't stay 6 feet apart. All the restaurants are open. The schools are open and nobody cares. They don't even acknowledge the virus is serious. Those are the two extremes. And I got to tell you, the leadership from the federal government has been terrible. And that's where you're going to be surprised hearing that from me. All right. I'm very, very disappointed in Donald Trump, who I have supported and voted for. He's done a terrible job. He started off well. All right. When I say that, the travel ban initially, the task force initially, the guidelines initially that were broadcasted on daily press conferences, they were all the right steps. The problem is he has, after the election, even before that, this was his election to lose. He could have been a wartime president. Should have treated this like a war. You don't let every state do their own thing. That's the problem. And he's done that. He's let the states handle it. He's taken no leadership. And because he doesn't wear a mask and his rallies, nobody wears a mask, he has spreaded that thought process to the half the country who is creating the problems.
Well, I see some hope here that, if you don't mind me interjecting here, Richard, I can only hope that some of the major legislators on the Republican side behave the way you have, or outline the thoughts that you have, because we need that kind of cooperation. Biden needs that kind of cooperation, as does the country.
Well, I'm hoping he can do the job. I'm not optimistic on him either, but we'll see.
All right, Nicola Ambrose, please.
Yeah, the only problem with what's just been said is it doesn't reflect reality in so many situations. I've been to many Trump events and everyone had masks on, so that's not true. No, I've actually been there, so it's not true. Secondly, I think everyone needs to thank President Trump for acting like a wartime president, and that's why you're seeing 11 million vaccines already distributed, and 14 million people should be vaccinated by the end of this week. As we're in the new year.
But you're missing the point, and that is that
data here.
Hold on.
We have to talk about actual data, and actual data is this. Of our beds, hospital beds in America, you can actually see this. HHS collects the data. Only 17.29% of beds in America are being used by COVID patients. Well, that's terrible. I don't want anyone in a bed with a virus that came out of China. Well, that's terrible. We are in the 60% range for utilized hospital beds. The danger zones, the worst parts of the country, are the most locked down. Southern California has the toughest lockdowns, tightest lockdowns, and they have the worst problem. Actually, if you want to look at the second worst area, Maryland's one of the states with high.
Nicola, the problem is everything's bad. There's no good states. All right. The problem is this. The president started off with guidelines, and the fact that he let those guidelines go and violate his own guidelines, since when the disease did not go away in Easter when he said it would, starting from July on, the president gave up on this. All right, he did not encourage.
If the first
let me make my point.
I'm loving it.
I know you are. Let me make my point. And I'm a Trump supporter, or I have been, but I'm disappointed in the way this has been done. If he would have encouraged mask wearing, I'm telling you, half the country, including family members of my own, don't take this virus seriously, and they do not wear masks, and they're causing the problems.
Billy, it's your turn.
I think the problem is that even now, this Operation Warp Speed is so far behind what its own projections said about when the virus is going to be delivered, that without concerted national action and a new plan for delivering what now may be 4 vaccines very shortly, people are not going to get vaccinated in time for this to be as quick a recovery as it ought to be. And so I think your outgoing president, Madame, has much to pay for in terms of human lives. And he will burn someplace, but not in my hand.
All right.
I really am still mystified. And I understand it was an election year and people are just trying to score political points. But how you're trying to politically blame a person in America for this virus that was released out of China and spread around the world.
Everyone? Is she blind?
I'm waiting for everyone to thank President Trump for fast-tracking everything to get these vaccines.
I give him credit. I give him credit for that. I really do. I'm not here to sandbag him. I'm just here to tell the truth. The truth is this. He could have won this election by a landslide. All he had to do was encourage mask wearing, follow his own guidelines, and he could have kept the economy open. We didn't need shutdowns. Keep the economy open if you wear a mask. Keep the schools open if you wear a mask. He would have won by a landslide, and he blew it.
Guys, hold it. Last week, President-elect Joe Biden accused the Trump administration of falling way short of the pace of vaccinations against COVID-19. The administration's vaccine distribution efforts have been slower, he says, than projections after a number of unanticipated snags. Officials working on Operation Warp Speed had planned to have 20 million doses of the vaccine distributed by the end of the year, which has passed, down from 100 million doses projected by President Trump. Joe Biden has vowed to vaccinate 100 million people in his first 100 days in office. Who wants to speak?
Well, first of all,
I think we've dealt with this in the sense that Trump has made lots of promises, has checked out of the entire COVID discussion, plays golf every day, rarely does anything other than obsess about having lost this election. And I cannot stress enough how damaging this is to the fabric of America. It is damaging to the relief effort in terms of getting the virus out or the vaccines out. It's damaging to businesses who are expecting quick action on deploying this vaccine. It's just a horrible tragedy. And he cannot get out of office fast enough because he is not helping the incoming president at all. And he is acting contrary to the best interests of this country, and in many instances, the best interests of the world.
Oh, yeah, I'll tell you something. He's also not helping.
Just add. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ted. Go ahead.
Let me just add to what Billy has said, because it really is important. We have this wonderful, terrific process of a transition of peaceful power. And one administration helps the other. This fellow has proceeded just the way he has governed. He is just reluctant to give anything up. He is still fighting the battle of the war instead of helping the incoming administration fight the battle of the virus. This is really tragic. And I would say it even stronger. The president has blood on his hands. This is not just some political error. This is an error that is an error in life that is dealing with lives. And I think we have to now be blessed with the fact that an administration is entering that has a sense of the enormous problem this is and the enormous resources that have to be applied to it. So
he is not what he is also hurting the Republican Party. He is hurting the Republican Party. His attitude and the way he has dealt with this election. And believe me, I'm all in favor of him, or have been in favor of him pursuing all his legal remedies. I really am. Okay. But it's gotten to a point now where he's hurting the guys in Georgia that are running. We need, the Republican Party needs to win those, at least one of the 2 Senate seats in Georgia, and he's sandbagging them. He's also putting the whole Republican Party, by the stunt he pulled as far as now coming out, or right before he signed the COVID bill, he then he sandbags his own Treasury Secretary and puts the Republican Party in a position where they have to turn down the $2,000 that, you know, it's just the things he's doing.
Understand why they're in this position, Bob. They have become sycophants. They have been loyal lapdogs instead of loyal opposition. They've got to change their thinking and their attitude about governance. Right, these guys have just got on with everything he said.
I want to hear final.
If they would say what Bob is saying,
Billy,
it would be a different country.
Yeah.
All right, Nicolai, final word on this topic from you.
I'm just shocked that people continue to politicize things. Specifically,
it's the president who won't wear a mask, not us.
I'm sorry, am I allowed to talk? Let's talk about Pfizer for a second. The reason you don't have 100 million vaccines so far, for instance, is that Pfizer delayed their results for political purposes before the election, and then tried to say they were not even part of Operation Warp Speed. So the level of politics that have been played with people's lives specifically is laid at the hands of the left in corporate America, including our social media companies. It's really disturbing to see people play politics and then try to claim there's blood on our president's hands. It's disgusting.
Nicolai, you and I are generally on the same side.
Playing politics.
No, I'd say this is a free against one
talking about decisions that affect human lives.
I don't think so.
Not today. Not today, because, and again, the president, I thought, started off terrific in dealing with the virus. He was the first to come out with it. He did a lot of good things in the beginning, but he has Because of the election, he has let it go to the states.
Folks, thank you, Bob. A brief pause, ladies and gentlemen, now as we remind you to call attorney Barry Glazer if you need a lawyer who will guarantee fight for you. Barry is a winner in court, and he's ready to win for you in that courtroom. Call 410-547-8568 and check out Barry's commentaries at alicereports.news. And for Marylanders, best diner food, where do we go? Double T Diner, of course. TT for totally terrific. Eat in or carry out. Double T Diners are located on Route 40 West in White Marsh, Annapolis, Pasadena, Perry Hall, and Laurel. We want to thank our 4 sponsors for supporting Square Off here virtually on Zoom. We have been getting thousands of eyeballs on the show every week, and we're getting good feedback, and we appreciate it. All right, coming up Wednesday, January 6th, the Congress will meet to accept the results of the presidential election. Donald Trump has refused to concede to President-elect Joe Biden and is also promising a wild protest in Washington on Wednesday. What is your reaction to this, Nicolay?
So I think the reason you have 80% of Republicans and over 40% of Americans, by the way, only a third of Americans are registered Republicans, thinking that this was not a fair and square election. Sure, there are thousands of stories in every single state, thousands, tens of thousands of signed affidavits. But the big problem that I think the case needed to be made better for, and we'll see it come out over the next few months and years, is this massive data breach that occurred in this 2020 election. And just to give you a few examples, I do a lot of IT and data work and have for well over a decade. There were singularly disqualifying errors with how these elections were run in states like Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. And just examples, if one of these things were wrong, this would disqualify, and we have many of these things. For example, just out of Antrim County, Michigan, there was no audit trail. There was an error rate over 68%. The logs for 2020 were missing. There was missing service security logs for November 4th, 2020 at 11:02 and before. They changed software in the configuration within 90 days of the election, which is not legal in America. They changed the software after the election. They attempted to zero out results, and the precinct cards were reprogrammed. Any one of those items, and this would be totally disqualified in any normal situation.
This is the exact kind of conspiracy theory going on that is really destructive to this country. Do you know what you're doing, Nicole? You are actually telling Americans that their elections don't count, that all this nonsense goes on. And through these hundreds of decades that we've existed in this country, we've never had mass fraud. We've had individual people who represent someone who may be dead, the wrong address, but we've never had anything. And in this election, there's no indication, however, that there have been enough votes that have been problematic that the election would have turned. Cut it out. You're not.
If there is a 68% error rate, before you respond. Furthermore, your refusal to even entertain why these things are a problem, to say you are unpatriotic to ask a question,
Vicky, you're overlooking that even the judges that Trump himself personally appointed don't agree with any of what you just said. And if there is such evidence that exists, where is it? God knows, inquiring minds want to know.
Yes, Billy, so let's go with that.
What happened in court? Why wasn't all of this stuff presented? Everybody gets their day in court, and they've got many, many, many days in many, many different courts, and none of them agree with you.
So Billy, let me answer your question.
It is arguments like this that destroy the faith in democracy and make it easier for fascism to come.
Billy is
trying to answer
absolutely
Billy's
right.
question.
All right, stop.
And
Let
that's the
let
problem.
Nicolay answer this in 30 seconds
Yeah.
because we're running short.
So Billy,
Go
to
ahead.
answer your question, the judge in Antrim County, Michigan, was the only one to allow the audit of the machines. This is the forensic audit that I am reading you with the results of that the judge ordered be released. The other court cases have been procedural issues. The problems have been people have not been able to analyze the machines. I am telling you the results from the audit of those machines in Michigan.
There are not enough votes at stake in Michigan when the dust clears, not only not to affect the Michigan election, but to affect the national election.
What is that?
All right.
That's a fire alarm.
Where, in your building?
Yes, I'm going to sit here.
Billy, if you go up in flames, we'll be heartbroken because you're such an important
But Richard, it's
panelist.
great television.
It is good television.
And we haven't even
We
talked
never
about
had-
the
We've never had anybody
170,000
die on Squirrel.
We haven't even talked about the 170,000 vote discrepancy in Pennsylvania. We have
you know what? Richard, you cannot allow lies like this to go on.
So
You cannot
ridiculous.
allow it.
Who voted?
Nicolay,
How can you have 170,000 more
Just
ballots than voters?
shush.
Just a
Nicolay,
shame. Just
we're
a
going to
shame.
close this topic. I want to ask you, Nicolay, do you recognize Joe Biden as the president-elect who won that election?
I will say this. I do not think we have done a good job of presenting this massive data breach.
All right.
I think we have focused.
So the answer is no, you don't recognize him. You don't recognize Joe Biden. Is that it?
I do not think Joe Biden won this election fair and square.
Okay,
Oh,
that's
my Lord.
incredible. And you are a Republican officer. This is incredible. It really
Ted,
is. It's
Ted,
just shocking.
let me ask you a question, Ted. Did you recognize Donald Trump after the election? Because
Yes.
I can tell you
Yes,
the
he was our
Democrats that are
president.
now claiming, many of the Democrats that are now claiming that Republicans don't recognize Biden are the same people that didn't recognize Trump.
That's not true. We never challenged the election. We didn't go to this
But you
extreme.
just said he
and
wasn't
challenge the election.
elected.
We didn't
duly
say what
elected.
Nicolay is saying. We didn't do any of that. We took him. There he was. We didn't like him. We didn't want him. We know
And you
he's
also
been
didn't
bad.
recognize him. You didn't protest, but you didn't recognize him.
Of course we recognized him. He was our president.
You're making an unfair
Joe
comparison.
Biden
This
called
is-
him an
Hold
illegitimate
it, guys.
president.
Is unprecedented in the history of the presidency. He is not cooperating with the incoming president. Obama cooperated. He is not sharing the
No, I
intelligence
agree with you,
that's
Billy.
vital to this
I
nation.
agree with you.
Obama
Talking
did
to
that.
Nicolay,
And
Bob.
so there was an institutional peaceful transfer of power without all of this childish bullshit that we're seeing from Trump and his followers. And you're comparing this.
No,
to
well,
what
I am
happened
comparing
to
because I'll tell you the difference. Wait a minute. Billy,
Do
you're
you
wrong on
recognize Joe
something.
Biden?
Wait
as
a
president?
minute. You're wrong, Billy. As soon as Trump took office, they were trying to figure out how to impeach him. They were trying to figure out how to impeach
And
him
rightly
just
so.
not
after he won the election. All right. So the difference is Trump is protesting and having rallies, and the Democrats tried to figure out how to get rid of him the day after he won the election.
That,
And the
quiet
that's
difference-
down.
not the difference, Bob.
Yes.
You're oversimplifying it in the extreme. We did not see a petulant Barack Obama. We did not see a recalcitrant person who was trying to undermine the democratic fabric of this country. That's what we're seeing from Trump right now. It's different. It's unprecedented.
All right,
and it's
guys.
gotta stop.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we close with a song by our singing star, we're going to go around the table here, around the screen. I want your one New Year's resolution. What do you want to see happen in the new year 2021? Ted Venetoulis, what's your resolution?
I want the Republican Party, which is a great old party, to become a rational, loyal opposition to the incumbent president. The country needs a loyal opposition, but they have to do it without conspiracy theories and without dimwits like Giuliani leading them.
Bob Scher.
I want normalcy. I want this virus to go away, and I want us to get back to our normal lives.
Billy Murphy.
I want the people who desperately need help to get it. I want this country to rebuild its infrastructure and put people back to work. I want to see cooperation between adults instead of politicians behaving like babies. And in this new year, I want all of the people on this program to have blessed New Year's and for their families to be in excellent health. Richard, I'm so sorry about the tragedy in yours, and you are in my prayers. And I am happy that we are now beginning to be united. This is my wish for the new year.
Well, you're going to make people wonder what tragedy, and it was just a medical issue, but I appreciate your sentiments. Nicolai, what's your New Year's resolution?
Well, I'll just say instead that I hope that America remembers how precious and rare freedom is, and that it returns to be in vogue for Americans to actually ask questions and for the media to do their job and actually investigate things and ask questions.
And for me, I just want to wish everyone a very healthy new year. May the COVID vaccine work and somehow let us get back to normal. I do want to thank everybody who has been supporting our Square Off for almost a year now on virtually. We're in our 37th year on the air somewhere here in Baltimore, the longest running public affairs show in the history of Baltimore television. We're at squareoff.net. Please tell your friends and our advertisers, please support them. And we'll see you next time. Now, Nicolai Ambrose, if you've seen other shows, has a fabulous voice. And we're going to say goodbye. See you next time on Square Off. Happy New Year. Let's have a tight shot, Howard, of Nicolai as she sings us out of the show.
All right, folks, winter's coming, and I'm going to ask that we let it snow. Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful. And since we've no place to go, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Oh, it doesn't show signs of stopping, and I've bought some corn for popping. The lights are turned way down low. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Happy New Year, everyone.
Bye-bye.